Hello, and welcome to Immigration Talk, a space where we hear from an expert on matters related to the immigration industry, law and policy, and practice. I'm Rosalie Van Staldeinen, and joining me is immigration lawyer Mark Holthe. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Rosalie. Great to be back.
It's always a pleasure. Mark, what are some of the current challenges with the TR to PR process, and how might immigration practitioners respond to those challenges?
Well, we know that right now we're in what I would call the dark days of immigration. For years, we told these individuals that, hey, come, if you study, work in Canada, gain some experience, then you're going to have a pathway to permanent residence. So that TR to PR dream was there. It was alive and well. And then it wasn't. And the reality is the temporary residence that the individuals obtain in Canada gives them opportunity, but no longer does it guarantee anything, which is one of the hardest things as practitioners we're trying to deal with. So when I think about, what we as practitioners need to be aware of and what we can do, I've got kind of five things that I wanted to address. And I think for the most part, if you're involved in this area to any degree, you're experiencing these things. But let's just go through them anyways. So the first is that the numbers no longer work for everyone. So in the past, if we had clients that had that good Canadian experience, we were pretty sure that they were going to be able to have a pathway to permanent residence. But with the reduction that the federal government has done with the total overall numbers and their restriction, and when you think about it, Rosalie, they were targeting up to 500,000 only a couple of years ago, permanent resident landings each year. And now with it being reduced down to 380,000, and for many people in the economic classes, just over 200,000 now. There just is not as the same number of spots available. And with the rate that people were coming in, international students and foreign workers, well, it's just not going to be possible anymore. So the questions aren't is this person eligible? The question is this person realistically competitive before their status expires? And as practitioners, we need to be candid, and we need to be candid early with our clients. Being in Canada is not the same as having a direct pathway to permanent residence. So just being candid, I can repeat that over and over as early as possible, is the most important thing that we can do for our clients. Now, we understand now selection isn't all just about CRS score anymore. It is super targeted. So as we're doing this, as we're trying to strategize for our clients, no longer do we just calculate their CRS score and say, okay, you're going to have a chance, you're not going to have a chance, because sometimes people who have even high CRS scores, they're just not doing as many CEC draws or general draws. They're all specific kind of policy goals, like the French, which, is what it is. It's still a massive cohort within the rounds of invitations, French language ability. And of course, Rosalie, in very short order, we're going to start seeing dominoes fall as the changes to the express entry process start to occur. And the scores, the CRS criteria are going to be the first dominoes to fall. And it makes it really difficult for us when we're trying to prioritize, based on government policy, which clients are going to have a shot and which ones are not. And so as we look at the provinces as well, we know that they just have fewer spots. And so normally we would rely on the provinces to help us transition our workers when there wasn't room within express entry. But now with the federal government pulling back more of those PNP nominations to the federal side, it's becoming fiercely competitive even at the provincial level. So we have to assess competitiveness, not just eligibility. And a client may qualify on paper for one of the programs, but man, understanding whether or not they have a realistic pathway, that is everything these days. The third thing is the reality that even maintaining status, it's harder than it's ever been before. So the strategy I'm often employing with my clients now is it's a war of attrition. How do I allow my clients to be able to stay long enough to weather this storm? And if the government says they're going to reduce the overall temporary resident population down to 5%, that's going to result in, according to their projections, at least 1 million people being gone by the end of next year, which in fairness are going to be many of our clients. But some of them, if we can find a way to keep them here longer, legally extending their permits, then they're going to have a shot maybe when the dust settles and then have an ability to go through whatever is remaining after the express entry forms take place, and maybe there's a readjustment within the PNPs. But right now, the key is for us to understand that we have had many of the tools in our toolboxes stripped away by the federal government. So we have to be very creative, and we have to keep all of our options open. And no longer can we rely on one stream. We have to give advice to our clients in a way that keeps as many doors open as possible. And if a PNP option is available, great. But that doesn't mean we're also not going to pursue any of the other federal programs like Express Entry or the Atlantic Immigration Program or whatever it might be. So it's there was a time, Rosalie, when I would say, if you didn't know exactly which program was best for your client, well, then you weren't a really good representative. But now there's just no guarantees. So it's not a matter of just trying to decide which program is best. It's how many we can give our clients a shot at and just see which one might work out in the end. So temporary residence to permanent residence is much more of a strategy, and you can't treat the two separately. They're one integrated plan. Okay, now here's an important one, Rosalie, number 4. It's how important employer support is. It's critical. And often I have people who've worked for a year and a half, and then they learn that their employer's not going to support them. One little practice tip I always tell my clients is if you're taking a new job, ask the company not if they're going to support permanent residence, because they don't know you. You need to build that trust with them. But what you can ask them is if they have a policy of not supporting permanent residence, because if that's the case, then that employer may be the difference between making or breaking their dream of becoming permanent residents in Canada. So I advise my clients to assess the employer early and just understand that a weak employer, or one that's just not really supportive of their immigration strategy, can be just as damaging as a weak immigration profile itself. So they have to be super, super careful with that. And then the final is just that practitioners need to move clients from hope to strategy. So you can't say, allow your client to say, well, I'll figure it out once I finish school, or I'll get 1 year of experience and then wait for the scores to drop, or my employer will probably help. You got to isolate all of that right down. And so the map includes 1, primary PR pathway. What is it? What's the backup pathway? What is the temporary status plan to maintain status? What are the key deadlines? What is the employer support plan? And finally, an exit or alternative plan if selection doesn't happen. And we have to be honest with them. So that's kind of the strategy. That's kind of how I look at it today, Rosalie. But the TR to PR, it's still possible, but it now requires a whole lot of strategy, timing, and brutal honesty with our clients.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that very practical and strategic look at the TR to PR process and what that means for practitioners. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Let's talk again.